Let's write a program. This program will calculate the body mass index, which is the weight of a person divided by their height squared. But before we do that, let's take a look at a couple of things that we haven't seen so far. First of all, because we're squaring a value, let's see how Python does that. There actually is an operator for that. So if we go to the shell and we want to take something like 5 and square it, we could just do 5 times 5. That works perfectly fine. But there's also the raising it to a power operator, so 5 raised to the second power, 5 double star 2 is 25, or I could even raise something, let's take 2 and raise it to the third power, which is 8. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Again, of course, I could have written it as 2 times 2 times 2, which is also 8. So that's an operator that we haven't seen before. The other thing that we haven't seen is, suppose I have a string and I want to convert it to a number. So for example, let's take the let's take a string. I'll call it V, and suppose it is 3.5. And what I'd like to have is I'd like to have a number. So first of all, we can check what's the type of V. It's a string, of course, because it has quotes around it. And let's convert that to a floating point number. So we'll have some n, and there is a function called float, which will take that string and convert it to a floating point number. Now, if I print n, we see that it is 3.5, as opposed to printing v, which is also 3.5, but notice the difference. The type of v is string, whereas the type of n is a float, which is what we wanted. I can also do float of just an int, which is the float of 3. That works fine. That also gives me a floating value. And similarly, there is a way to take a number, take a string that's a number, let's call it 34, and convert that to an integer. In fact, let's actually assign it. We'll go z is my conversion of the string 34 into the number, and we see that the type of z is now an int. So we see that we can raise things to a power and create an integer. So let's do a quick program. The program that you can open a new window within IDLE. You want to save it and give it a name. I'm working on a Macintosh here, similarly on a Windows machine. I will call it, because I'm doing a body mass index, I will call it BMI. And I put an extension on it of .py, indicating that this is a Python program. It's a good idea to remember that, to put that on there, because what happens is that if you end with a py, then you get some colors in there. If you start a line with a pound sign, that means it's a comment, which means that it's there for the human reader, and Python will ignore it. So we're going to calculate the body mass index, otherwise known as BMI. The formula for that is, and this is the metric formula, is BMI equals the weight of a person over their height squared. raised to the second power. So it's a nice idea to print what we're going to do. Calculate BMI in metric. And now I'm going to ask for input. And input, when we do input, comes back as a string. So I'm going to name this as the weight string. And the function we use is called raw input. And what we do is we have a prompt there, like enter weight in, let's see, this weight in kilograms. And what I'm going to do, just to illustrate what's going on, let's print. We'll input that and then we'll print it. We can use the function F5 key to run this, and we see in the shell it prints out calculate the BMI in metric and enter a weight in kilograms, and let's put in 73. And we get an error message because I have a typo in my program. I put in weight STY and I really wanted to have STR. So let's fix that. Let's try it again. It says the weight in kilograms. We say 73 and it prints out the 73. But what I really want to have is I want to have weight as that's a string. What I'd really like to have is weight as a float. So let's convert, and remember to spell it correctly, let's convert my weight to a float. We will also ask for the height. Again, comes in as a string. When we do raw input, enter height in meters. And we want to convert that to a float. Notice how Python helps you out. You type float and it tells you what what that function actually does. Gives you a little help there. We can check to see how we're doing. We can print the weight and the height. And if we wanted to, we could even check the types of those. Save it. Function F5. And let's see, enter a weight in kilograms. We'll do 73 kilograms, about 160 pounds. To make them in meters, if we do about 1.8 meters, that's going to be about 6 feet, and we see that they are both of type float. Kilograms, notice, is converted to a float, 73.0, and the meters to 1.8. Notice how I'm writing a few lines of code and checking out how I'm doing as I go along. Now that I have a height and a weight, I can calculate a BMI, which is simply just like our formula, height over weight, nope, did that wrong, weight over height raised to the second power. And then I can print BMI is BMI. And I can remove, if I like, I can remove the my printing that I had before. Now I can save this again. F5 runs the program. We have weight in kilograms is 73, height in meters is 1.8, and the BMI is 22.53. Bunch of extra decimal places there. We'll deal with, it'd be nice to print those out maybe with a couple less. We'll deal with that another time. we should, with a calculator, check our results. I'm not going to take the time to do that at the moment. If I was to take someone and increase their weight, maybe make a 114 kilograms, we'll bump them up from 160 pounds to 250 pounds. We'll leave the height the same. And now we see we have a considerably larger body mass index, in fact, probably not a very healthy one. So what we've done is we've taken a problem, create a body mass index. We input two values. We converted each, and the input always comes in as a string. We converted them to floats. We then did a little arithmetic, assigned that to BMI, and then printed out the result. That's it.